13th juz, and Surah Al-Hijr is the first surah in the 14th juz. So we know that the kuffar of Quraysh, they continuously used to ask the Prophet ﷺ to perform miracles for them. And in Surah Al-Ra'd specifically, the demands that they made were mentioned in terms of asking the Prophet ﷺ that, look, if we believe that you're a prophet, then through this Quran of yours, why don't you do the following? Why don't you move these mountains that are around Mecca? Why don't you cultivate the land so that we start growing food and things around it? As you know, around Mecca, the mountains are basically just rock, and it's very difficult to cultivate anything around that area. As Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was leaving his family there, what did he say? He said that I'm leaving my family biwadin ghayri dhi zara', in a valley which has no vegetation whatsoever. So they said that, look, why don't you remove these mountains and make the land flat, and then make the land in such a way that we can start growing plants in it, then we'll believe you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a verse which is in Surah Al-Ra'd, وَلَوْ أَنَّ قُرْآنًا سُيِّرَتْ بِهِ الْجِبَالُ أَوْ قُطِّعَتْ بِهِ الْأَرْضُ أَوْ كُلِّمَ بِهِ الْمَوْتَى. The third thing that they asked was that our forefathers, they passed away centuries ago. We want to have a chat with them. We want to talk to them. So make them come alive so we can talk to them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse, that if there was such a recitation through which these things could happen, that the mountains could be moved, the earth could be cut up and cultivated, or that you could talk with the dead people, then this would be the Quran. There's what's called in Arabic kalam mahdhuf in the sentence, that this would be the Quran that you could do it through. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then continues, بَلْ لِلَّهِ الْأَمْرُ جَمِيعًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in full control of everything, and He chooses what to show and what not to show. And the reality was that whenever these people asked for miracles, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't show them any miracles. And the reason for that was that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows a miracle that the people demand, and then on top of that they don't believe, the next step is the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it was actually a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He did not send down these miracles. And then the other thing is that when we talk about Iman, Iman is always Iman bil ghayb, Iman on the unseen, Iman on the hidden. If everything becomes apparent, if we ask the Prophet to show us the angels, to show us the punishment in the grave, and he shows it to us, then after that, what is the concept of Iman? Now we've seen it. Now we've seen the angels. So that is not Iman anymore. That is, that is believing in mushahada, what we've seen with our eyes. So what we are supposed to have is Iman bil ghayb, Iman on the unseen, Iman on the hidden, something that we cannot see. So the whole concept of Iman, it basically goes down the drain when you just continue to ask for these types of miracles. The next ayah is towards the end of Surah Al-Ra'd. The Prophet ﷺ was often criticized for simply being a human. Okay, so they said that how come he's a human and he has a wife at the time that it was revealed, it was just Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha. How come he has kids? And last night we heard another verse which is similar in nature, that Mari hadha Rasul ya'kulu ta'am wa yamshi fil aswaq. What's up with this prophet? He eats food and he goes shopping. He goes in the marketplaces. Okay, as if being a prophet automatically means that a person is not a human anymore and you don't have needs and necessities anymore. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed a verse saying, وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلًا مِّن قَبْلِكَ وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ أَزْوَاجًا وَذُرِّيَّةً. O Prophet of Allah, all the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam that came, meaning the majority of them, Isa alayhi salatu wasalam was the exception who didn't have a wife, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I sent many prophets before you, O Prophet, and they had azwaj wa dhurriya, they had wives and they had children. Okay, so having wives and children is not something that is contrary to the teachings of, contrary to the rules of prophethood. So this also we learn from this, that many people think that if I become religious, then I have to just give up everything. I have to give up my worldly life, and I have to give up things that I enjoy, and I have to just become like a monk who lives in a cave. And this is not what Islam is about. People are afraid of that, and that's why they don't want to adopt religion. They think that they have to give up everything. The reality is that Islam doesn't forbid you from enjoying your life and having a good life and having wives, having children, having a nice house, as long as all of these things are done within the boundaries of Sharia, within the boundaries of the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, many people have this understanding that having wealth is something which is contrary to the teachings of Islam. Wherever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions wealth in the Quran, He uses the word fadl, a blessing. So wealth by itself is not something bad. It's how you earn it that makes the difference, how you spend it that makes the difference, and then you will be held accountable. If you earn it in a wrong way or you spend it in a wrong way, then you'll be held accountable for it. But wealth by itself, there's actually nothing wrong with it. And again, and of course you have to fulfill the obligation of zakat and give in charity from it, so that other people can benefit from the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. So being religious doesn't necessarily mean that you just give up your worldly life. You continue with your worldly life, and at the same time prepare yourself for the hereafter. This is what we learn from these verses. Going on to Surah Al-Hijr now, we have some people who, when giving lectures, they just want to focus on the hellfire. They want to focus on the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whereas if you look at the teaching of the Quran, there's always a balance between the two. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions verses of Jahannam, then He will also mention verses of Jannah. And then there's always this balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates when He is talking about the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ himself, he used to tell people, Bashiru wa la tunaffiru, yassiru wa la tu'assiru. Give people glad tidings, give people hope, give them something to aspire for, and don't make them run away, don't make them hate Islam, don't make things difficult for them. Okay, so this is what happens, that when we start, for example, instilling into our children, just, Allah is going to punish you for this. You're going to go to the hellfire for this. And Allah is going to become angry at you for this. Then there will become a distancing of the children from the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reality is that we need to create within our children and even within ourselves a love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and a hope in His mercy and something to aspire to. And when people basically just focus on Jahannam, 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 people basically get scared away. And that is why there's a very important principle in Islam which is called Al-Imanu Bayn al-Khawfi wal-Raja. Iman is between the hope and the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hope in His mercy and fear of His punishment. The balance is very, very important. Why are we supposed to have hope? So that we turn to His mercy and we have hope in His mercy, and we should be afraid of His punishment, so that we don't fall into the trap of what people think, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ghafur Rahim, I can do whatever I like and He will not punish me. And on the other hand, we have to believe in His punishment. Why? Because if a person thinks that the same thing, that if a person thinks that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to, if He is Ghafur Rahim, so He's not going to punish me. And we have to believe in His mercy. Why? Because many people, they commit sin after sin after sin, and then they think Allah is never going to forgive me, so I may as well just continue to do what I'm doing. So this is why this very important principle of Al-Iman Bayn al-Khawfi wal-Raja is found in the Quran and in the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expresses both Jannah and Jahannam in the Quran. For example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Hijr, and there's a riwayat of Salman al-Farsi radiyallahu ta'ala, he said that when I heard these verses, I became very upset and despondent, thinking that it looks like I'm going to end up in a hellfire. What were those verses? وَإِنَّ جَهَنَّمَ لَمَوْعِدُهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ لَهَا سَبْعَةُ أَبْوَابٍ لِكُلِّ بَابٍ مِّنْهُمْ جُزْءٌ مَقْسُومٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, indeed, the hellfire is their place of promise, all of them. This Jahannam, it has 7 doors, and every door will have a fixed share of people going through it. So Salman al-Farisi said, when I heard these verses, I became very sad and depressed that there are going to be so many people going through to the hellfire because of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned here. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the following verses. إِنَّ الْمُتَّقِينَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ وَعُيُونٍ أُدْخُلُوهَا بِسَلَامٍ آمِنِينَ. Indeed, the people of taqwa, they're going to be in gardens and in springs. Enter into them with peace, aminin, full of aman and without any kind of fear. And finally, وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِم مِّنْ غِلٍّ إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرُرٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ لَا يَمَسُّهُمْ فِيهَا نَصَبٌ وَمَا هُمْ مِنْهَا بِمُخْرَجِينَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the ghil that is in their hearts, it will be removed. So what does that mean? Okay, if, say for example, there is some problem that you have, somebody says to you that, how about I guarantee you paradise if you're allowed to be with that person that you really hate in this world. You hate a person, but if you say that you will live with that person in paradise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you paradise. So all of us are going to jump at that opportunity, right? That, okay, I'll get along with this person in Jannah just so that I can get into Jannah. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that actually there'll be no hatred in the hereafter. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to remove all those illnesses and impurities from our hearts before we are entered into paradise. And that is again something that we need to understand, that Jannah is pure. So only pure people can enter, and the purity of the heart has to be there also. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to remove it. And how is it going to be removed? It is going to be removed, there's a couple of riwayat. One is, it's mentioned that there's going to be a spring before people enter into paradise, and people are going to be washed in that, and when they wash themselves, then that impurity is going to be removed, and then and only then they'll be entered into paradise. But in any case, even if people are sworn enemies and they end up in paradise together, there's not going to be any hatred. Allah says, وَنَزَعْنَا مَا فِي صُدُورِهِم مِّنْ غِلٍّ إِخْوَانًا عَلَى سُرٍ مُتَقَابِلِينَ. We'll remove that impurity from their hearts, and they're going to be brothers. They're going to be reclining, facing each other on couches and beds, relaxing in Jannah, relaxing in paradise. And then 2 verses later, actually, there's another example of that balance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. Allah says, نَبِّ عِبَادِي أَنِّي أَنَا الْغَفُورُ رَحِيمُ. Inform the people, inform my slaves that I am Ghafur Rahim. I am forgiving, I'm merciful. وَأَنَّ عَذَابِي هُوَ الْعَذَابُ الْأَلِيمُ. But at the same time, remember that my punishment is very painful also. So again, that balance is being created just 2 verses later. Finally, towards the end of Surah Al-Hijr, is something that we need to learn a lesson from, especially in this day and age, when our beloved Prophet ﷺ is being ridiculed, cartoons are being drawn about him, movies are being made about him, and there are websites criticizing the Prophet ﷺ and saying bad things about him. There's a whole actually industry which is set out to defame our beloved Prophet ﷺ. Now this is not something new. This was something that was going on at his time also. He had incidents where people, na'udhu billah, and even thinking about it makes us cringe for a regular human being, let alone our beloved Prophet ﷺ, where the Prophet was thrown trash upon him and feces were thrown on him. Human waste was thrown on him. People used to joke about him and ridicule him as he used to walk past. They used to say bad things about him, and they used to wink at each other and nudge each other that this is that crazy guy who's spreading around this message of worshipping one God. And people used to just mock him and just ridicule him. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say about that situation, and what can we learn from it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا كَفَيْنَاكَ الْمُسْتَهْزِئِينَ. O Prophet of Allah, we are enough for you when it comes to the people who are ridiculing you. We're enough for you. So we see, even despite all of the propaganda against the Prophet ﷺ, we still find that there are people interested in learning about Islam, and still we find that people are becoming Muslims. Inna kafaynaka al-mustahzi'in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we're going to be enough for the people that are ridiculing. Okay, so the Prophet was told that Allah is enough. Who are those people? الَّذِينَ يَجْعَلُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ فَسَوْفَ يَعْلَمُونَ. They are those people that are making a God with other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very close that they're going to find out. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to deal with them in a very close time. وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. And indeed we know that your heart becomes tight because of what they're saying. And of course, when we hear these things about our Prophet ﷺ, when we find that cartoons are being drawn, because we love our Prophet so much, of course our hearts become tight. And of course we become upset. And of course we want to do something. But what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? I'm enough for these people. Okay? You don't have to do so much that your doing becomes counterproductive. Okay? Sometimes we basically lose it and do things that actually have the opposite effect. Like for example, we had this whole issue of Salman Rushdie in the 90s, right? Where he wrote a book which was really, it's not a book worth reading. It wasn't any kind of special type of literature. But because there was a few verses which were blasphemous against Islam, the Muslims took it upon themselves that they had to boycott this book and have protests and worldwide condemnation. And what happened? A completely unknown author became famous and started getting book awards and Booker Prize and Pulitzer Prize and whatever other prizes there are for authors. Completely unknown guy became famous. So we sometimes become our worst enemy by doing things which actually become counterproductive. Okay, so we need to be a little bit more wise and understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching everything. Even in his time, the Prophet ﷺ could have been told to actually raise arms against such people, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَلَقَدْ نَعْلَمُ أَنَّكَ يَضِيقُ صَدْرُكَ بِمَا يَقُولُونَ. What did he actually tell the Prophet ﷺ to do? فَسَبِّحْ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّكَ وَكُمْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. Continue to praise your Lord and become amongst those people that prostrate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Turn to Allah. Glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pure. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. This is what we're supposed to do. وَكُمْ مِنَ السَّاجِدِينَ. And become from those people that turn to Allah and prostrate to Him. وَعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. And continue to worship your Lord until al-yaqeen, meaning death comes to you. So this is a huge lesson that we learn from these verses, that what should we be doing when it comes to these kinds of incidents. More often than not, it is better to ignore these types of things and leave those people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deal with them. Allah will deal with them in His own time when He wants to. If not in this world, then certainly in the hereafter. What we need to do is focus on ourselves, on our cleanliness, or cleansing ourselves, purifying ourselves, turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making more ibadah, making His tasbih, and becoming good examples of Islam so that we can be ambassadors of this beautiful religion and people can start following us and taking and saying that this is what Islam is about and we want to be part of this. This is what we're supposed to be doing, inshallah. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us tawfiq to understand and practice what has been said and heard.